in Scott Gulbransen from Silver and Black today. Scott, how are you, man? It's good to see you.
Doing good, guys. Congratulations on the show. I know you and Kyle are going to tear it up, and it's going to be fun to come on each week with you guys, talk a little bit about Raiders football and whatever else pops up, like echoes and baseball legends and whatever.
Slapshot. Yeah. And I definitely, we're only having guests on that will like say we're awesome. So thank you.
That's 2 for 2 today.
That's 2 for 2. Like everyone is excited that we've got a show. Hey, this is opening weekend. Everyone's super excited. This is, what we all live for if you're a football fan. You've got Chiefs Lions tonight. You got Raiders, like big game to open the season. Just where are you at with this Raiders team, like coming into the season, like this first week? Are they ready?
Yeah, I wrote a piece up on sportsnot.com about the Raiders seemingly are very focused. Of course, they had some weirdness this week with Chandler Jones, who seems to be having some breakdown issues and whatnot. And from a human level, you hope he's okay. But they don't seem distracted by that. They seem very focused. It seems that the team a little more focused and I think comfortable going into this season versus last season with Josh McDaniels. And his coaching staff were new last year. His system was new. You had Derek Carr there. Darren Waller was still there. So these were guys that were holdovers from the previous regime. Now with a lot more of quote unquote their guys in there, it seems like it's just a more comfortable environment. So they seem focused on it. There's a lot of question marks, though. I think the Raiders offense is going to be pretty dang good if Jimmy G can stay healthy. That's the big caveat. But other than that, I think all the questions are on defense. Can the Raiders defense move from 28th, where they were ranked last year, to maybe high 20s at best, so that they can stop people and give their offense a chance to keep games in view and in a point where they can win them.
You brought up Jimmy Garoppolo, and out here, obviously, with the 49ers, that's going to be a person of interest all season. Did their offense get better by moving on from Derek Carr and bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo?
Well, I think you have to say yes, and that's not necessarily a slight on Derek Carr. I think what we now know, based on what Carr said after he left and went to New Orleans, was he was never really comfortable with Josh McDaniels or his system. And it showed, because Derek Carr had the worst year he had since 2014, his rookie season. So I think for him, it was good. And I had said midseason last year that I thought an amicable divorce was coming, that, hey, let the guy go try to win somewhere else. He's been part of in the past dumpster fire that was the Raiders organization. And so now he gets a chance to go somewhere else. And then for the Raiders, Josh McDaniels gets to get one of his guys, whoever that was at the time. It ends up being Jimmy Garoppolo. And Jimmy Garoppolo, when he's healthy, is a good quarterback. Is he a top 5 quarterback? Of course not. He's not a transcendent quarterback. He's not a Mahomes. He's not one of these guys who's going to go down in the annals of NFL lore as one of the best ever. But I think he is a pretty good bridge quarterback. I think the Raiders have the next couple of years to decide what they're going to do, who's going to be the quarterback that's going to lead them into a string of winning seasons, which they have not had so far in quite a while.
Scott, you're talking about Derek Carr there. And then we also have the Chandler Jones situation. And I think it brings to a larger point. Is there still this weird disconnect with McDaniel as a head coach? And can he get through this? Can he grow and find a way to find balance here where he isn't in these types of situations?
Well, I think the Carr situation and the Chandler Jones situation, two very different. Chandler Jones, I don't think it has anything to do, although he's sharing these private texts between him and Josh McDaniels, and he's saying that, obviously he's saying negative things about the organization, including general manager Dave Ziegler. I don't really believe, in every indication that we have, there's no belief that was because of something that happened, more so than it is that Chandler Jones is going through some difficulties. Derek Carr, different issue. They never listen. The Raiders gave him, Dave Ziegler, Josh McDaniels gave him a new contract last year that included a no trade clause, which wasn't good for the organization. So they went into last year, I think, really believing that they could get out of him what they wanted, and that didn't work out. So that's on the organization, I think, more than the player. So I think that question, though, is one of the question marks heading into the season, based on what he did in Denver. and the only record we have of him being a head coach. So he's got to change that perception. But that's certainly the narrative across the country, and you don't change that unless you show something that you've gone past that and that you have the guys. But I will tell you, in this preseason, in this camp, it seems to me it is a different feel, and the players there all seem to like him very much and seem to be bought in on his concept. Now it's got to translate in the field. When things get rough this season, we'll kind of see how things hold together.
Talking with Scott Gulbransen, the host of Silver and Black Today. That's an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app. You can find it wherever you get your pods. But Scott, the Raiders drafted Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech, player I like a whole lot. What did you see from him in the preseason, and how productive can we expect him to be in year one?
Yeah, and it's interesting because fans are all or nothing, right? It's like the guy either is God or he sucks, and they shouldn't have drafted him.
Fact.
Tyree Wilson got a late start to camp. He didn't really start camp until just about a week and a half before it ended and before the first preseason game, because he had that foot injury at Texas Tech. He hadn't been on a football field since last November, and the Raiders knew that when they drafted him. So they took a risk there. But as you said, I mean, you watch this kid on film and you know how powerful he can be. So he played in the Dallas game. He played one series. He showed a little bit of rookiness, right, where he got beat up a couple times, but he also showed his explosiveness and the speed. And you saw that and you said, wow, if this kid puts it together, he's got that capability. Remember, he was a kid who at earlier on in the draft season, people were saying could go as high as 3.
Yeah.
So this is a really good talent. I think he's going to come along a little slower. Now with the Chandler Jones situation, though, he might need to step in there faster, but Malcolm Kuntz is there to kind of fill the void. But I think, by game 3 or 4, you're going to start to see him get a lot more snaps. And so I think there's a little bit of patience Raider Nation needs to have with him. But I think by midseason, you might see him reach some of that potential that we all saw as we were building up to the draft.
Now, Scott, this team wasn't very good last year. The predictions aren't very good this year. 5.5, 6.5 wins. What is it that you're expecting, though? You don't have to give me a win total, but
yeah,
do you think this team has an opportunity to start to climb out of this hole that they've dug for themselves, or is this going to be another sort of wait and see season and hopefully things work out?
Yeah, early on, right after the draft and some of the free agency moves that they made, I picked them to win 8 games. So they picked 6. They won 6 last year. Now, remember, last year they won 6 games, and this is an indictment on Josh McDaniels, I think, a lot, which is they blew 5 double-digit leads in the second half. Okay, so that was terrible. They could, if they would have won 3 more of those games, we're having a much different conversation, because then they would have won 9. They might have missed the playoffs, but they might have won 9 games. So I think 8. I think a ceiling of 10. You never know how things go in the NFL. AFC West, as you guys know, is going to be brutal, with the Chargers, a better Broncos team, and of course the Chiefs. We'll see how they roll out tonight, even without Travis Kelce. I think we'll see. But either way, I think the Raiders looked at this as a 2-year situation. Okay, you can't go backwards this year, but the progress forward, if you can go ahead a couple games and then build your defense again, because you can't build it overnight, and do that again next year, then I think you're going to have an opportunity. This team will have an opportunity to be in that wild card race. And if things go crazy this year, they could even probably sneak in. It's just going to be tough. The whole AFC is just stacked.
Is it a situation where if they miss the postseason, they are looking at moving on from Josh McDaniels?
You know what? I know a lot of people would say that and think that, especially after what happened last year. I don't think so. I mean, you guys know, you're up there. What has been the problem with this Raider organization for 25 years? And that's a revolving door. Now, the Mayock Gruden situation, for all the reasons you guys know about, was different, and not on Mike Mayock, but the John Gruden one, obviously very, very strange and crazy. Mayock and Gruden didn't draft well. That probably the worst drafts in the history of the Raiders franchise. And that's saying something, because Al Davis did, at the end of his years, did do a couple of woozies, but the Gruden drafts were just brutal. There's nobody left except for Josh Jacobs, right? So you look at that and you say, okay, what do we need to do? I think unless he loses the locker room guys, I think he's got another year no matter what happens this year. But if he were to somehow, to your point earlier, James, about how he relates to players and his reputation, if he loses that locker room and it becomes public, because you cover locker rooms, guys will start talking if it's really bad. And if
Yeah.
that starts happening, then I think all bets are off. But if that doesn't happen, I think he's got at least one more year there in Vegas.
Yeah, it's interesting covering the NBA. There's only 15 guys. So when you lose a locker room, you feel it. You feel it as a collective.
Yeah.
You see it, and it's time to go.
Yeah.
And so I would hate to be in an NFL locker room with 53 guys and then practice squad guys. Like, you could lose half of it and not the other half, and you could
Yeah.
lose the whole thing. Like, and then like that's a lot of gigantic
I wither when one person doesn't like me. A whole locker room of people being out on me, I couldn't do it.
Kyle's gonna struggle here on the insiders.
I need people to like me, bro.
Scott, thanks so much for joining us. You can find all of Scott's work over at Silver and Black Today, Odyssey Podcast. We're going to do this every week. We're going to have you on. We're going to talk Raiders. We are the home of the Las Vegas Raiders here at ESPN 1320. So thanks for joining us.
Guys, again, great luck with the show, and look forward to talking to both of you next week.